Everybody, thank you for watching. This, I believe, is a prophecy alert, a major sign that just happened, and my brother Mike kindly informed me, which is covered by brother Paul Begley. Well, on the 1st of December, the United Nations voted to divide Israel and Jerusalem to the pre-1967 borders, and they voted on the 1st of December, the United Nations, 153 voted in favour and only 7 abstained. Look, can you imagine that? That's a major sign. Back to the pre-1967 borders, that about 49 years ago, that was during the 6-Day War. Israel fought with Jordan, Syria and Egypt, and they actually won and took some of their land, Israel. Well, now they're saying they voted to divide Israel, and they want Jerusalem to go before the 1967 border. Well, they passed 6 resolutions. They adopted 6 resolutions, the United Nations, on the 1st of December, which all voted to ask the Israeli and Palestinians to intensify their talks on peace and security, and get a 2-state solution. If not, they said they would take it in their own hands and force the dividing of the land. Can you imagine that? Boy, that is a major sign. But not only that, they said from immediate effect, they want Israel and Jerusalem to withdraw from the Golan Heights. Can you imagine that? So they can give it back to Syria, all because they believe it would start the peace process. Again, it's linked to another sign, peace and security. In 1 Thessalonians 5:3. So they want to force them to divide the lands. They want them to go away from, withdraw from the Golan Heights. And also, there's another thing. Also, they voted 149 to 7 and imposed a law on Israel that it's illegal for them to hold power or jurisdiction over Jerusalem. Can you imagine that? So that they said that Israel's control over Jerusalem is illegal. Boy, it's a major sign. And on the 2nd of December, Obama suspends Jerusalem assembly for 6 months. So that's even after Trump comes in office. So can you imagine all this? This is a major sign. They believe by giving back the land to Syria, it would bring about peace and security. Well, let's go back to who God promised the land for Abraham and his descendants. Let's see, Genesis 15, verse 1 to 4. After this, Abraham had a vision and heard the Lord say to him, "Do not be afraid, Abraham. I will shield you from danger and give you a great reward." But Abraham answered, "Sovereign Lord, what good will your reward do to me, since I have no children? My only heir is Eliezer of Damascus. You have given me no children, and no one of my slaves will inherit my property." And it goes on to say, then he heard the Lord speaking to him again, "This slave Eliezer will not inherit your property. Your own son will be your heir." The Lord took him outside and said, "Look at the sky and try to count the stars. You will have as many descendants as that." And then go down to verse 15. verses 17, When the sun had set and it was dark, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch suddenly appeared and passed between the pieces of the animals. Then and there the Lord made a covenant with Abraham. He said, I promise to give your descendants all this land from the border of Egypt to the river Euphrates, including the lands of Kenites and Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, Asherites, and the Jebusites. In other words, all the Middle East, all Palestine is God promised to Abraham and his descendants. And so, what will happen if? So you can imagine what will happen to the nations, all these 153 nations that signed to divide Israel, and when that happens, I'm afraid that it's going to be very major. It was all originally, Palestine was all originally, the Israel's inheritance. It wasn't the Palestinians or the land of Golan Heights and etc. belonged to Israel. It was much more. They had more land in the past. Though Abraham had Isaac. When Abraham had Isaac, he also he never had any children So Abraham was told by the Lord to go with his Egyptian slave girl Hagar, which produced Ishmael before Isaac was born. And also again later on, when Isaac had a son, he had two children, Jacob and Esau. But it was Jacob that actually ended up getting the birthright. So at the end of the day, Ishmael and Esau were rejected. That wasn't the line that was going to inherit Israel, but Isaac and Jacob. So, and Isaac was called Ishmael, and Esau ended up the Arab nation as it today, and the ones, obviously the Muslim race, and throughout the centuries they've always wanted to regain what they believe they've lost out on, Jerusalem. But at the end of the day, God promised it, as I read in Genesis, to Abraham's descendants. God gives a stark warning. If the moment they actually force Israel to divide the land, this is what God will do. Joel 3, chapter 3, verse 2. I will gather all the nations and bring them to the valley of judgment. There I will judge them for all they have done to my people. They have scattered the Israelites in foreign countries and divided up Israel, my land. So he's going to do basically what they're going to do to Israel. And Obadiah, book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 15, which says, in other words, the day is near when I, the Lord, will judge all the nations. Edom, what you have done will be done to you. You will get back what you have given. So in other words, God will judge the nations. If they actually divide the land, that's why it's a big, very major sign. If it does happen, then they will do whatever they do to Israel. So it's a big warning. There's so many things happening in Israel at the moment that are prophetic. A lot of things happening in Israel that are very prophetic, all happening at the same time. ISIS, fighting over the border with Israel over the Golan Heights, Syrian border. Fires all over Israel, which I believe It's prophetic, and I've done a video about that. And also the sign in heaven, though it's September 2017, the conception begins about December time. It's year 5777, began in October, October the 3rd, and also Jubilee. All these major things. I believe there's only 3 scenarios if the United Nations want to force the dividing of the lands. If they don't come to a compromise, Israel and Palestine, they say they will force them. Well, one, Israel's either going to agree, and secondly, that's one option, but I don't believe it. I don't believe that all, because I believe if they force them, I don't believe that either. I can't imagine that. It'll probably be war, because Paul Begley spoke to Hugh Glick at the Knesset, a rabbi, who said, "No way, they're not gonna divide the land at all," and that goes for Netanyahu. So, in other words, I can see war. Unfortunately, Israel may well go into a little conflict, either with NATO or the United Nations over this. They will not want to give up the Golan Heights or whatever to Syria. So Israel agree by force, to dividing the land just for the sake of peace and security. They can also they're going to fulfill Bible prophecy. Let me read 1 Thessalonians 5:3, which shows it's very short-lived and it's going to be a disaster. There is no need to write to you, brothers, about the times and occasions when these things will happen. For you yourselves know very well that the day of the Lord will come as a thief comes at night, when people say everything is quiet and safe, or peace and security. Then sudden destruction will hit them. It will come as suddenly as the pains that come upon a woman in labour, and people will not escape. But you, brothers, are not in darkness, and the day should not take you by surprise like a thief. So you see, it's this. Even if they do divide the land and get paid by force, it's just short-lived, according to that. Because you remember what happens, as we've read, what's going to happen to the nations that voted to divide Israel. Remember, it was a stark warning to them and to the whole world, because over 100 voted, nations around the world voted to divide the land. So remember, he does use nature. Remember the flood? God can use the flood. He used in Noah's time to destroy wicked people. I'm sure the walls of Jericho was an earthquake, and in other things, so nature was used. And every time that America tried to divide Israel in the past, a natural disaster happened, and I will do another video about that. So please, be wary. This is a major sign, and repent through Yeshua's name, because he's the only way to salvation. Thank you very much. Bye.